Welcome, everyone, to the Defiant Weekly. If you're watching this on repeat, thanks for joining in, and be sure to drop us a subscribe and a like and all that kind of good stuff because, well, I'm looking at the counter. Alp Gazimov, 93.9 thousand subscribers. It's been a decent year for us, and that's the whole point of this stream. We're looking back on the year. Back in 2020, I made one of those kind of clickbaity videos where I said, here are 5 things I'm going to be looking out for in 2021. And I thought it would be interesting to go back and look at what I said back then, see whether I was right, whether I was wrong. And of course, people in the chat have already picked out the fact that we put a very clickbaity, dumb YouTube Viber thumbnail on this video. And that was deliberate because it's been pretty much the character of the year that you've got people going for YouTube. And it's just, oh gosh, I hate it. I hate it. But as we'll see, that's been one of the features of the year. I actually called out influencers. We'll jump into that later on. Why clickbait, says Marzugaza. Why clickbait? Because we're making a point. We don't really do clickbait on this channel. And if we do, it feels dirty and it's not something that I want to do. And it's not something that any of us want to do, really. And what I think is interesting, though, is just seeing where our heads were at the end of 2020, because this year has been massive, absolutely massive. And it's just kind of interesting just to take stock as we move into 2022. The market is red today and it feels like everything is bad. But where were we exactly a year ago? And where will we be going next year? And what are the things that I'm looking forward to in terms of 2022? All of that coming up after these messages from our sponsors. And of course, our deliciously lovely title sequence. Don't let high gas costs keep you out of Ethereum. A Balancer, the gas-optimized vault architecture, makes trading cheaper than anywhere else. Liquidity providers can optimize their fee earnings using the dynamic fee system that automatically adjusts to market conditions. You can also use asset managers to lend out idle assets, dramatically increasing your capital efficiency. And because Balancer is an open platform for flexible automated markets, you can choose from stable pools or weighted pools. And in the future, more designs will be created that, well, they don't even know about yet. Check it out at balancer.fi. Do you want to get actionable insights and find new investment opportunities before everyone else? Nansen is a blockchain analytics platform tracking more than 100 million wallet addresses. Make informed decisions on your yield farming and investments through dashboards like hot contracts, smart money, and NFT paradise. See who is aped into an NFT collection or farm, and look into the behavior of money flows on-chain. Sign up now at nansen.ai and become a smarter investor today. Oasis. Well, that's been trending a lot in the DeFi space lately. But what is it? Well, Oasis is the leading privacy-enabled Layer 1 blockchain network, ideal for DeFi due to its instant finality, 99% lower gas fees, high throughput, and privacy protection. Founded by Dawn Song, a Berkeley professor and one of the world's foremost experts in computer security and artificial intelligence, Oasis is among the top 2 invested blockchains with one of the fastest growing developer networks in the industry. Oasis has an established partner ecosystem with companies like Band, Chainlink, Genetica, Nebula, BMW, Binance, and more. Recently, the team announced a substantial $160 million Oasis ecosystem fund, supported by top industry backers such as Dragonfly Capital, Electric Capital, Jump Capital, Pantera, and more. The fund is dedicated to help projects build on Oasis. If you want to receive funding, visit oasisprotocol.org and apply today. Last but not least, Yuzu Swap, the first DEX built on Oasis, will launch soon, and there's already an airdrop running. Check it out today at yuzuswap.com. And so we're back, and joining me, as always, is Alp Gazimov. I think Alp doesn't really get the credit he deserves. This is someone who's been basically making videos with me since the Harmony days. He is a hugely important piece of the puzzle, and I don't think we would be able to get as much content made without him here. Alp, thank you for what has been just a ridiculous amount of content this year.
You're welcome, man. I'm happy to be working here together with you. It's been incredible 2 years, you know?
It has been. And do you remember what it was like when we joined Harmony?
Absolutely. Like creating content in just the crypto sphere is difficult. Like we had difficulty finding our tone, finding our approach to it. Should we do it like more creative? Should it be more towards what people are expecting, which is usually around what price to buy at or whatever, you know? Like, should it be more on the financial side? Should it be more on like the creative side? It was just difficult to figure out what it was in the beginning, but we've found out the tone later on as time progressed, and it was good.
And it's been such a crazy year for us as well. Like, I remember when we were at Harmony, we were in the middle of a bear market, and it was very difficult to see that 2021 could happen. Then 21 has happened. It's going to go down as one of those great years. And it was so interesting going back through all the videos that we made this year to see what we were covering, the richness of how we did it, and then just the need to supply more and more content, to do more and more videos every week, just to stay on top of the evolving story. And this is DeFi we're talking about. And that's not just covering crypto, that's just DeFi. It was evolving at such a fast pace. And one of the things that kind of bugs me about this year is that we're really good at being creative. We're really good at finding weird angles, cinematic storytelling, doing things in a very unusual way to make them memorable and to validate them and make them stick in your mind. And it's just been very difficult to squeeze all of that into the schedule for the work that we've done this year. But I still feel like we've done some fun things. Have you got highlights from this year of things that we've made?
I do. Should I play it?
Well, no, we're not there yet.
Oh no, okay.
We're not, but like in terms of the films that we've made, have there been like particular highlights? Because I'm next week we're going to be doing a whole bunch of highlights of things that we made. But for you particularly,
for me particularly, I think the first one that sticks up to my mind is the greatest NFT film ever made was incredible, because that was the one that we shot in anamorphic. Which, when I say anamorphic, people don't get it probably right now, but it's like this wide cinematic view that we shot. That was one of the first films that we ever did like that. And it was just such a giant video. It really felt like a film for me, like a proper film for me. It was like 1.5 hour long. We worked long hours to get it done. And yeah, that was, so that's one. And besides that, what do you have in mind?
Yeah, it's interesting that you bring that one up, because NFTs has been such a massive thing this year. And we made a film earlier, like end of 2020, where we were talking about digital art, NFTs, and it became this very successful video for us. I think people were looking for information and they found this video, and that was 20 minutes long. Then the greatest NFT film ever made came out, and it was 1.5 hours. And it was basically my attempt to capture all of the energy and ideas and things that were happening in the NFT space. And literally the moment I posted it was out of date. There was so much going on at that point in time. But you're right, we were trying to, I guess, step aside from financial gains, everything else, and say, this is a ridiculous point in time. And if you ever to go back and look at one film that really wrapped it all up, we hoped it would be that one. But anyway, let's go back to
I had a couple more, actually.
You had a couple more. Go for it.
All right. So the second film is the one to the Defiant guide to art blocks.
Oh yeah,
that was really fun. I got to punch you in the face in that one. And the third one is a deep dive into Avalanche. That's one of our deep dive into protocol series, where I made you wear the Galatasaray jersey and you ate Turkish food. That was a fun one.
Yeah, in the chat, someone's saying Ava X was my highlight as a Turkish. Like, it was interesting seeing Do Kwon interviewed by CoinDesk and specifically have to talk to an Asian American and say, I am Asian. That was what was so remarkable about that piece. So if you don't know, that Do Kwon was interviewed by CoinDesk, and the interviewer, in this kind of very twee American anchor presenter way, just kind of gave him this really on the nose question, which was, are you afraid of the US government and that's why you're based in Asia? And Do just said, well, I am Asian. I'm South Korean. So I'm interested in Asia and I'm interested in the world. And it becomes so easy to think of crypto as simply English or American and not think that there's actually communities elsewhere that could be interesting. And, when we were at Harmony, I think the most immediate contender to us was Elrond. Elrond is a Romanian team, completely Romanian, Eastern European, and Harmony was a Silicon Valley team. And we were like this, but the the instinct, I think, and the motivation behind Aaron's energy around everything they do was to prove that an Eastern European blockchain team could be successful and had its place. And we've seen the same with the Turkish community. Like Ava, it really feels like a Turkish project, but it's not. It's global, it's universal. But I think that's a lesson we really need to take on board, that this is a global proposition. It touches everybody and borders are completely unimportant, which was, I think, not always obvious this year.
Yeah, I think blockchain has no borders. Like even though Emin Günser is Turkish, but he's not based in Turkey. His team is not in Turkey. And a couple of weeks back, he made the first hackathon in Turkey, actually, and that brought the Turkish community together. And it was lovely. Like not so many people do those things in Turkey, so it was nice to have. It's nice to have a Turkish representative in the blockchain sphere, I guess. But yeah, the point is that blockchain has no borders, and it doesn't care about if you're from Silicon Valley or if you're from Romania or wherever. As long as you have a good tech, a good narrative that people believe in.
And it was also funny today. We're building out quite a lot of complicated technical stuff at the office at the moment. One of the people that we've been looking to as our North Star is a young man called Matt Workman. He's based in America and he's incredible. But actually what we discovered today, there's this scrappy Polish unit that's doing incredible things, that is hacking together like MIDI devices and stream decks and all these other things to make like virtual production happen. And I learned more in 20 minutes of one of their videos than I had in such a long time. I was like, you know what? There's people much closer to home who are doing incredible stuff. We just don't know about it. And I think that's one of the challenges that we have on the channel here, is to shine a light on things that other people are not covering, to not necessarily chase clickbait and not necessarily chase their views, but try and find what's interesting. And I think the way we are funded via sponsorships and not ads definitely helps us do that. And I would like to do more of that next year. And I think it's important that the Defiant at least represents as much as we can the things that are underrepresented. We're not going to cover everything, but we'll do our best. Anyway, I think we should jump back in time 12 months and look at what we were talking about a year ago. And the very first thing, if we jump onto my screen, Mr. Algazimov.
Let's do that.
Yeah. The very first thing that I mentioned in that video from last year was hacks. Roll the tape.
So coming in at number 1 is hacks. No surprise there. And I don't think it's too far-fetched to imagine that there could be a $1 billion hack in 2021.
So that was hacks. And well, that really wasn't much of a call, was it? So let's take a look at some of the hacks that happened this year. And there were some massive hacks. This is a kind of basic breakdown of all the big hacks that happened this year. And there were a bunch of them. And it's not surprising that the value of those hacks went up. In 2020, we covered hacks a lot. And most interestingly, we were covering flash loans and how they were used to exploit DeFi protocols. And there was a lot of exploits that happened, but they weren't that big when compared to what happened this year. Some absolutely monstrous numbers. So DeFi hack losses across all networks totaled around $7 billion. Think about that, which is a $2.5 billion increase from last year. Cyber exploits against DeFi grew at the rate of 22.5x year on year. And again, that's not surprising when you have more people in the space and you have more value sloshing around and you have more unsophisticated people and more kind of vulnerable protocols that have been put together very fast. Then that is to be expected. Since 2012, there have been 534 blockchain hacking incidents that have taken place, but 169 of them came in 2021. If you look at this graph here, just look at the one down the bottom, Poly Network. It is so much bigger than everything else. We definitely need to take a look at that. But Compound getting buggered in the face, that was bad. So the Poly Network hack, that hacker took $273 million worth of ETH, $85 million worth of USDC, $253 million worth of BSC. Just try and imagine what that feels like to be the hacker that exploits this network like that. That is an absolutely staggering amount of money. $600 million. $600 million. Think about that. What you'll see here is Poly Network compensates full asset restoration. That's taken from a Medium article where Poly Network talks about making everybody whole. And the way they were able to do that was because the hacker returned pretty much everything. the wildest story. I completely forgotten about this story. I went back and I was like, oh my God, this one was wild. So the hacker actually put this Q&A into an Ethereum transaction, and here you have it. When spotting the bug, I had a mixed feeling. Ask yourself what to do had you facing so much fortune. Asking the project team politely so that they can fix it. Anyone could be the traitor given 1 billion. I can trust nobody. The only solution I can come up with is saving it in a trusted account while keeping myself anonymous and safe. Now everyone smells a sense of conspiracy. Insider? Not me, but who knows? I take the responsibility to expose the vulnerability before any insider is hiding and exploiting it. One of the things I've noticed about hackers this year is they really, really, really have this strong sense of self-importance. I am a white knight. I'm showing the vulnerabilities of systems. You are arrogant, and I will show you up for how arrogant that you are. In that video, I said that there might be $1 billion hack. There hasn't been $1 billion hack this year because I was wrong. Alp Gazimov, I was wrong.
You were wrong.
I was wrong. This is what the hacker said. It would have been $1 billion hack if I'd moved remaining shitcoins. Did I just save the project? Not so interested in money now, considering returning some tokens or just leaving them there. Basically, what happened was the hacker did return the tokens, apart from about $33 million, which were frozen by, of all people, Tether. Tether froze the account. So bear in mind that USDT, Tether, they can freeze your account. So can USDC. Just freeze it.
Centralized?
Centralized. Correct. Believe in the bank of DAI. DAI. Frax. Algo stablecoins. UST. Phrase nothing.
Magic internet money?
Magic internet money. You know what it's like. Stablecoins are going to be on the agenda for next year. There is no doubt. And if you had forgotten about the size of these hacks, it's crazy. So there was no $1 billion hack this year. But according to the hacker, if he had been a little bit more adventurous, it would have been $1 billion hack. Crazy stuff. So the next one we were talking about is NFTs. Alp Gazimov, roll the tape.
Number 2 is NFTs. I don't think it's, again, too far-fetched to see that an NFT in 2021 could sell. I'm talking about an individual single NFT here. Could sell for $1 million.
$1 million. And did it happen? It's like, I remember writing that and saying, $1 million. Like, I think it happened within like 2 weeks of 2021. You know, it was like, it's literally just like, oh yeah, it's $1 million. Like, so what? Like $1 million it was like a sale for ants. And it happened really fast as well. NFTs just exploded last year. So this is a little look at the total number of sales. I think this is the last 3 months. For some reason, there's this big kind of penis shape on the 15th of November. I have no idea what that's about. I couldn't actually find it when I was researching this thing for today. But Punk 7523 was the most expensive Punk, $11.75 million. And of course, Beeple every day's $69.3 million. And Human One also just raised an enormous amount of money, absolutely enormous amount of money. This is the last 24 hours. Here's a CryptoPunk that's gone for $1.58 million. Like, $1 million sales in NFTs, especially in punks. Whatever, bruv. Yeah, crazy. But there is also this. I'm going to have to go back in and fix this because it's wrong. Oh. There it is. There it is. So I hate it when this happens. The presentation's broken. Let's just try this. There you go. It's fixed now. So there was an NFT sale of a Punk for $530 million this year, and it wasn't real. Although technically it was real. The amount of money changed hands, and the sale did in fact happen, but it was basically a Chad move. So the owner of this Punk bought and sold his own ape, or her own ape. Could have been a woman, who knows. Using a flash loan, and did it for $530 million. And I forget how much the actual transaction cost. I think it was something on the region of $150, the whole transaction cost. But they used the flash loan to buy their own Punk for $530 million. And that was kind of fun. And it made some headlines, all good. But then this young man, Richard, got an offer for the highest amount there's ever been for a Punk and declined it. And he said, my identity, along with the identity of other iconic punks and apes, have value beyond the NFT itself. We have our own brands, similar to any other brand, and that has value because I value my personal brand and identity
this was an easy rejection for me. This was an enormous amount of money. It was around $11 million or something like that. And Richard made headlines because he said no. So no, I'm not going to sell it for that. And I guess what Richard is saying is I value my personal brand. Everything I've created, all the work that I've done is worth more to me and continuing to exist under the banner of this punk than anything else that I could do. And that money is not enough. And I wouldn't give it up, which is, I think, an easy position to take if you've bought a punk for a relatively lightweight sum. I spoke to G Money yesterday, or the day before yesterday, and he had the same kind of thing, like the G Money identity, which is his ape punk. That's him. And like, he would never give that up now. It's way too valuable to him in a way that simply the money wouldn't be. And he's prepared to ride that line. So, you know, interesting stuff. Then that was the NFT kind of thing this year. Of course, there was so much more. I want to give a shout out to Puck. I think of all the NFT artists this year, Puck is the one that survived with the most credit, probably, I would say. Came out making work that was infinitely interesting and kept changing the game and evolving and moving forward. And I think Puck's greatest gift is that he's able to stay ahead of us. We are a rampaging group of amateur forensic detectives that will track down any piece of evidence there is wrongdoing. And one single artist cannot stay ahead of that force. But Puck, for some reason, is able to somehow orchestrate his audience, his community, continue to make work that is challenging and is not for everybody. And I think that's interesting as well. And still innovate with technology and with art. And it's, I made an enormous amount of material about Puck this year and really went deep on it. And nothing really about what I said in those films has changed. Like Puck continues to, I think, remain the gold standard for NFT artists. It's very, very, very difficult to replicate what Puck has done. What else was there this year? Oh, yeah, PFPs. Remember those? So I put Bored Apes and Cyberkongs here because those are the two projects that impressed me the most this year in terms of just their ability to think their way out of apathy and stagnation and keep moving the needle. You may not like Bored Apes. You may not like the community. You may not like the way that they've been co-opted by celebrities. That's fine. Cyberkongs just live in a completely different universe. Everything that Cyberkongs has done, pretty much everyone else has just copied. And there's no real reason for that. It's just that their community and who's there has been just willing to experiment, try things, and it just seem to be very, very smart. So I've been very, very impressed by Cyberkongs, very impressed by Bored Apes. I tried to get an interview with Bored Apes for the NFT show yesterday. Tried to get one of them on. They're not taking any interviews. I suspect what is going on with Bored Apes is that they're finding that they need to just shut up about everything. Otherwise, they'll get themselves in trouble. And that probably means there's big things afoot. Who knows? But it's kind of sad because when I made my big Bored Ape film earlier in the year, they were more than happy to talk and now off limits. I remember when Binance launched, you could just go and chat to CZ. He was in Telegram. He was there. Easy. Try doing that now. There are these little limited windows of time when you can talk to the people behind these projects. And, maybe I have privileged access because I make these films, but really I don't. I really don't. We had Cool Cats on the show yesterday. Evan Liu, shout out to him. That was a really fascinating insight into how Cool Cats came about. So check that out. But PFPs have been huge this year. Absolutely huge. Let's check in on the chat. The pack series was excellent, particularly the 10-hour dead air. Thank you, Niftorius. Yeah, that was a joke. We put a black hole. My whole spin on the pack story was about black holes. We put a black hole literally in the film. And I remember Alp and I were just looking at it. Should we put just 9 hours of black in the middle of the thing? And then we put a QR code for like a minute in the middle of it. And you could claim an NFT in the middle of that. Fantastic. Bro, do more mocking Charles. Here we go. This is Charles Hoskinson coming to you live. I love Charles Hoskinson. He's the best. We'll pick him up later. Let's go. What else do we have in NFTs? We have NFT pushback, of course. Right click save. Remember that?
and the climate controversy swirling around NFTs, an ecological nightmare pyramid scheme. What I think is just so funny about all of this space is that people get really aggravated who are not in it for a couple of different reasons. One of which is they're obviously pissed off they missed out and they don't like other people being successful. But it's less that than it is about they don't like other people talking about being successful. I think they're actually perfectly happy for people to be successful as long as they shut up and kind of keep it quiet. But it's just the constant shilling. It's the constant shouting. And therefore, they find themselves backed into a position where in order to just be relevant, they have to be contrarian. And so we got this ridiculous climate controversy swirling around NFTs because, of course, NFTs, there's nothing to do with, the ecological impact of Ethereum or not. An NFT is simply a tiny piece of code that determines how a thing should be recognized by a blockchain. That's it. That's nothing to do with the climate or anything else. The amount of energy required to mint an NFT on the Ethereum blockchain, well, yeah, we are trying to figure that out. And everyone loves to shit on alternative layer ones or layer twos, and because they're crap or they don't work or they haven't got enough liquidity and all these kind of things. But fundamentally, if you want these problems solved and you want to encourage debate and you want to encourage discourse, then you don't just shit on it from a high point and say this cannot be, this is terrible. You go, okay, fine, fix it. Wonderful thing about this space is that it's a hacker mentality. It's like, we have a weekend, let's get together and fix stuff. We're encountering all these regulatory headwinds at the moment. There's a lot of people that come together and they spend a lot of time figuring out what they're going to talk about. And then they spend a lot of time talking about it. And then they spend a lot of time talking about what they talked about to come to a point where they put something together that's going to be talked about by a bunch of other people until the point where it's so eroded in its capacity to do anything meaningful. And we're 2 years into the process that, hackers don't think that way. And when I say hackers, I don't mean like people who will steal your money. I mean just the pure act of taking something, breaking it apart, and seeing if you can do it in a better way. Like hackathons, just a weekend of just fixing stuff, trying stuff. That's what this space is really good at. And I think if those outside looking in, instead of scorning that, say, you know what? If we turn that energy towards problems that we want solving, they'll be solved extremely rapidly and a really good way. So someone's asking, is the stream down? I don't think so. Damn. Have I frozen? Am I literally just a rictus? Let's keep going.
Let's keep going.
Let's keep going. So the third thing I talked about last year was influencers. Show me some influencers, Al.
I think we'll be talking about influencers a lot next year. And I don't mean crypto influencers.
This market's about to blow up.
Of which there are many, and I'm sure there will be many more next year. And I'm talking about influencers. And when I see someone like Beeple come into the space, when I see someone like Lil Michaela come into the space, dip a toe, and do it very successfully, you know that it's really just the tip of the spear in terms of a lot of entrepreneurial, risk-taking influencers coming on board and trying stuff.
Hey, look at that. Being overwhelmed with pointless content is what's agitating Chill Money says. I feel you. I feel you. I try not to do that. It's not always possible. I think some of the stuff we put out isn't as good as some of the other stuff we put out, but like we're always trying. So here's some YouTubers. Look at the faces. If you came onto this stream, you would have seen us do exactly that. Look at them. This is basically what YouTube is about. And I remember us getting some criticism from someone when we were doing videos for Harmony saying, you've got to have a picture of yourself reacting to something. And we went, no, we would never do that. That's just not what we are. What?
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 Delete that. Delete that.
What? How is this possible, Alp? Yeah, we went there. We went there. I feel sick looking at this, honestly.
By the way, subscribe, guys.
Yeah, subscribe. So bad, right? So influencers this year, we saw a lot of them. These are NFT influencers mainly. We've got Beanie there. We've got Cooper, Turley. We've got Suzu, Coltherium, Pranksy, and of course, the legends that are Kobe and Ledger. Kobe and Ledger's Up Only podcast, what would you call it? It's a chat show, basically, is just the stuff of legends. Kobe, if you don't know, like the guy's history, OG, really impressive. Both of them actually are very, very impressive, and what they've managed to achieve with that show, I'm very envious. Cooper Turley seemed to be everywhere this year. Do you remember Clubhouse, Twitter Spaces? There's just spaces and Clubhouse and chatting and conversations and everything, and everyone was like, I want to be in a conversation with somebody, and I just want to be connected, and I want to hug you. I want to hug you, Alp, because it's all love and peace.
Get some help.
Remember that? Fortunately, being on an industrial unit somewhere in a provincial town in the Netherlands, we didn't get caught up in any of that, and I'm very thankful for that. But those are the crypto influencers. They were nothing compared to the influencers that I thought were going to come into this space, and I thought we'd be looking at the likes of Selena Gomez come into this space. That's not what happened. It was a whole different cast of weirdos that came in, and here they are. Elon, Snoop, Michael Saylor, Gary Vee, Mark Cuban, Paris Hilton, and some boxer.
You forgot one name there.
Yeah, who did I forget?
Melania Trump. She's launching NFTs on Solana. Did you hear about that one?
Melania Trump is launching NFTs on Solana.
She is. Yep.
2 words. Don't care. So these are the influencers that came in, and these are the people with massive audience. So my point in what I said a year ago is that we would see people with huge audiences come in, and they would introduce people to the idea of decentralization. That is not what happened. They introduced people to the idea of PAMP, like massive PAMP. And I think on that list, there's probably only Paris Hilton that didn't do that. And I'm sort of shocked to say that. It was a wild time. And you just saw these people everywhere. Like Mark Cuban came on the Defiant. I tried to get in contact with Paris Hilton, and I almost got there. And then I ran into some obstacles, and it didn't happen. We actually had Ice Cube on the show. We had Terry Crews that we talked to as well. Everyone just wanted to talk. The amount of people that got in touch with me saying, I watched your greatest NFT film ever, and like I need to reach out and talk to you. And I was like, it's very flattering. It's wonderful, but now what? And at the end of this year, we're like, well, where are you now? Where are you now? And it's a fair question, I think. So that's why I said influencers plus, because all these people have massive audiences. Michael Saylor, if you've seen his latest video, it's like, dude, chill out. chill out. So the next thing we got into was hardware.
Another thing that I think we're going to be talking about next year is hardware. Give me 1 second. I was supposed to have this on the table, but I didn't. This is an Oculus Quest. It's a VR headset. It's a very nice piece of kit. I don't love the color, to be honest. I think it's going to get dirty really quickly, but... Oh yeah, I'm clearly still playing a game on this. The thing about this is it's a VR headset that doesn't require a PC. And VR games, traditionally, you have a cable that's coming out the back of this, and then there's quite a few hoops you have to get through to get VR to work. But VR inherently is, well, let me give you my pitch on VR.
Let me give you my pitch on VR. Come on. I really did think that VR was going to be a thing this year. And in some ways it was, in some ways it wasn't. For me, it was. I mean, I was doing VR boxing, and I actually thought we were going to be producing work in VR. And I was ready to kind of embrace doing that. And it just didn't happen. Alp, do you have any insights into why it didn't happen for us doing stuff in VR this year?
Well, we did a couple things. So we did one video with a VR production where Insomnium, I was like filming you with VR controllers, and you were dressed up as your custom-made different VR costumes with the me bit and the other one. That was pretty much it. Why didn't we do more VR? Because it's I don't know. I actually don't know.
Yeah, well, that's the thing. Like, I don't have a good reason for it, but what I do know is that there's. I guess what it is. We try and. I think we try and put a fair amount of finesse into what we do, and it's quite difficult to create that finesse in VR at the moment. It looks a little goofy. And I think so much of what we do is about performance and nuance and everything else, and not being over the top and having that control over what we do. And the VR is just not ready for that yet.
The quality is not there yet.
It's in, yeah, and if as a platform, as someone that's using it, it's fantastic to create content. I was just, yeah. I love my Oculus though. I still love it, and I think it's really fun. And every time I step back in and I go into Somnium and I see what's there, I love it. But like, I'm ready to produce content from there. So my take on hardware, completely wrong. Like the funny thing about NFTs though is that we saw a lot of projects try and create kind of physical versions of things. We have physical frames for NFTs like Token Frame. We've actually got a couple of these infinite objects at the office as well. We've actually got that very, very one. But the hardware thing just didn't happen. But I guess the lesson from this is that NFTs are portable. They're very easy to transfer. Physical items just don't have the same resonance. And yet, like I keep showing this prop, like our janky, our Aku, the real physical items that you can see just kind of behind there. I love these things. These things are just fun to have at the office. I've got a couple of Simon 1 paintings. These things are just really fun. And I love having those physical items, but at the same time, that's nothing to do with where we are in blockchain. I was basically wrong. But what it does do is it points us towards the metaverse. The RTX 3090 is this insanely powerful graphics card that came out this year. We actually had a 2080 Ti in the computer that we were using for this, but we now have 2 machines with 3090s, and it's just where you got to be. And like we're looking to move into Unreal Engine and virtual production next year, and we need 3090s. Zuckface, of course, produced the most cringeworthy video of the year, hashtag cringe AF, and him talking to this cartoon version of himself. I mean, they could have at least put some decent shadows around his feet. Come on, show us the version of the metaverse that you want us to be seduced by, not whatever this is. But it's very clear that the metaverse, I think, is where the hardware component is going to be really important, because the richer the experience you want to have, the more powerful your hardware is going to have to be. Or maybe it's not. I don't know. Until cloud computing gets to the point where we think it's going to be exciting enough to make that work, I don't know. We'll see. Wow, the presentation is really going wrong today. Let's see if we can fix that. And go back in. There we go. So where that takes us is we were very much looking forward to taking the story of the Defiant and what we were doing into virtual reality. We had built an HQ in Somnium, and it was very exciting. But I think it just didn't work for our production environment. It was just going to take us too long to get what we needed done. So from next year, we're moving into virtual production. And I suspect that's probably a little bit difficult for people to understand what that means. But essentially, there are a few different ways of doing it. There's an inertial suit, which is like you have a suit with sensors, like an iPhone has a sensor in it, and you can kind of track the inertial data that comes through from sensors and all over the suit. And it's okay. It's what CodeMiko uses. We realized about 6 weeks ago that would not be sufficient for what we needed to do. And it was a pretty horrible realization because we'd already invested in the suits. But we make stuff that is like needs to be 99% correct when we shoot it. We do one take pretty much of every video that we do. We never really do any redos. It's just as it comes out. And the system that we needed is, in fact, the Vicon system. So this is an optical motion capture system. It uses infrared cameras, and it uses suits or items with like these ping pong balls basically on top of them. And the camera picks these up as these infrared dots, and then it tracks them in 3D, and you basically get this effect. So you've got a guy in a suit here, but actually, if you look on the monitor, you can see that the operator is not actually seeing a guy in a suit. It's seeing a monster in an environment. That's effectively how we're going to be shooting next year, turning me into a metahuman, but also allowing me to perform as different characters. Why would we bother doing this? Well, I think it's basically because we need to tell the story of the open metaverse from the metaverse, but we also need to create the aspirational version of that and not the reality of it. And so building an Unreal Engine, having the flexibility to create any environment we want, go any place we want, build virtual sets, it allows us to expand beyond the borders of the walls that we have in here and to shoot at the speed that we shoot. We just get bored really easily. We need different backgrounds and different lighting things, and this is going to open up so many possibilities. But it's also going to connect us very closely with the world of gaming. And for me, gaming is where everything's going to take off next year. I think that's going to be a really big deal. Bear market, that was another big topic for next year. Alp, roll the tape.
And the final thing I'm going to be talking about next year is not a bull market, but a bear market. Because what I learned off the back of 2017 is that as amazing as things can be when they're really good, and the enthusiasm that comes with that, the incredible gains that there are to be had in the market, inevitably what follows is a massive bear market. The bear market this time was protracted, shall we say. The one that follows will be even more protracted. And I think it's wise to look ahead and think about what you're going to do once the market turns against you, once the sentiment turns against you.
Actually, I just want to jump into a comment. Unreal Engine looks really incredible. Unreal Engine is really incredible. One of the things that we've learned through our explorations with it is that it's much more of a coding environment than it is a 3D animation environment. And it's been a bit of a kind of weird kind of assessment phase as we try and figure out kind of what we have and how it plugs into what that will look like. But essentially, I'm going to show you something here. We have, this is an M Audio MIDI controller. It's designed for controlling Ableton, in fact. And we've been teaching ourselves Ableton at the office here. But that MIDI controller, if you imagine the sun in the sky in Unreal Engine, if I were to slide this controller wheel here, I could make the sun go down. If I were to hit this button here, I could make my head explode. There is going to be a level of functionality and interactivity that we're going to be able to put into Unreal Engine that's going to blow your minds. And I think that is probably the most exciting thing for me as a storyteller, the ability to completely control my environment. If we want to talk about, Elon Musk going to Mars, then we'll go to Mars. We'll actually be there, but we can do it incredibly fast. But we can also just have fun with it and discover where this technology can take us. I've never been in a position ever where I could genuinely say there's probably 5 or 6 people anywhere in the world that are actually doing what we're going to do next year. And I think there's probably only going to be us that are doing it in the way and at the speed that we're going to be doing it next year. And that's a bit odd, to be honest. And Unreal Engine is a big piece of that, but it's not the only piece of that, of course. A car won't drive without a driver unless it's a Tesla. That doesn't really work, does it?
No.
No.
Let's carry on.
No. Someone like Chris Boardman, who was Barcelona 92, Chris Boardman, if you know, he rode a bike which was designed by Lotus, carbon fiber bike. And everyone went, yeah, it's just the bike. And he said, well, the bike doesn't pedal itself. You need someone to pedal it. It's the same with us. You still have to write a good script. You still have to have a good idea and a good concept. And Unreal won't give that to you. It'll allow you to express it in the most detailed and beautiful way possible, Lumen and everything else. But you can't just turn Unreal Engine on and suddenly everything's amazing. There's a lot of other stuff going on. But what I love about it is the fact that it can be programmed. It can be plugged into Ableton. You can use Resolume, which is a VJing software. So many incredible things that we're going to be able to do next year. And it's all thanks to the Vicon optical mocap suite. Just blown the bloody doors off everything that we're doing. It's going to be incredibly wild. Adam M says, I bought that exact same board from my friend this Christmas. Amazing. Ableton, you get 3 months free. Unreal Engine, free. This thing, M Audio Oxygen Pro Mini, I think it's about $100. We love hardware. Genuinely, we love hardware at the office. Like, we've been buying more and more incredible pieces of hardware this year. And there's no sign of us stopping. One other thing I want to show you. That, my friends, is the most douchebaggy instrument on the planet. That is a Roland AX Edge. It's a guitar. You might have seen it in other videos, but this thing is going to be mapped 1-to-1 in Unreal Engine. So I have a version of this with which I can trigger lasers, with which I can trigger basically Alp's head to turn into a cabbage. Like whatever I want will be programmable. Yeah, you heard it here first. There's a serious thing though here, which is there's going to be, I mean, think about how much money Facebook has, and they've literally owned the word meta. You can't use the word meta now without it being connected to Facebook. Brilliant. Absolute genius. Why did we not think of that? And if you think of the Constitution DAO buying a piece of the Constitution, but they failed, well, why couldn't they have just bought the name Meta instead? And we wouldn't be in this position. But now we are directly in combat with Mark Zuckerberg. Have you read this book? If you haven't, get it for somebody for Christmas and make sure you read it, because if you want to understand how Facebook actually works and have a detailed account of how all of the stuff that went wrong, it will give you an idea of just the power of Web 2 big tech and how it's coming into this space and how it's basically just doesn't give a fuck about you at all. And that's where we are. So the bear market, just to get back on topic. Remember, this was, when was this? This was mid-April when Bitcoin went above 60,000. And then suddenly the bear market happened. Over 200 billion wiped off cryptocurrency market in a day as Bitcoin plunges below $50,000. And it was a plunge. It's been doing it again, hasn't it, recently? One of the interesting things was Luna's 81% price crash knocked UST off its dollar peg. We've been talking a lot about stablecoins recently, and Raoul Pal's conversation with us on Wednesday, we were talking about Elizabeth Warren and her depiction of stablecoins as the playground of the shady and scammers. I don't think they really are, but that's, you know, it's what she needs to say. UST was the stablecoin that we brought up as potentially a place for some stablecoin arbitrage, if you like. And yeah, you know, that was a terrible thing to happen to UST. But of course, the things that they've learned, the lessons they learned from that, and the things they've now put in place to protect against it are very, very interesting. When the market is red like this, stablecoins are where you go. You don't necessarily need to cash out. You need stablecoins to work. And all of these phases where things drop, they're very, very important for these big protocols that we hope will be a refuge for capital and for sensible money to go in times of redness. We just want them to work. This guy, Louis Navellier, believes Bitcoin was going to crash below $10,000. Oh, yeah, by the way, here, we did a whole kind of stream about getting ready for the bear. What was it, about 6 weeks ago? Almost 2 months ago. Yeah. You're not ready for the bear. We were basically saying that if the bear comes, what are you going to do? It's like nobody can really predict when it's going to happen. But yet here we are. And I think we posted this video right about here. And then boom, it happened. Not saying that we're geniuses.
Have we entered the bear market right now?
Well, we're in a bearish phase. Yeah. The market is bearish right now. And there is talk of it descending towards this area here, which is around 40,000. It's not impossible. What are you going to do if that happens? When we made this video, it was around here and it was sort of heading north. And we were trying to say, I guess, here are some things that you could do in order to just feel like you're in control. And I think that's the main thing. It's not about beating the market or anything else. It's just knowing that you have considered and you have thought about the position you'll be in if the market goes against you, and knowing that you've thought about that, because it gives you some comfort when it does go bad. But, you know, like I said, this is not us being geniuses. We didn't figure this out. We just made a video that was trying to go against the froth that was at the time, but in no other way than just to say, here are some things to think about. Because again, like I said, we are not geniuses. We don't time the market or anything else. We just aim to hedge ourselves or hedge our own biases. So yeah, Bitcoin crashed below 10K. If you follow Tone Vase or our old friend Nouriel Roubini, he's going to pop his head up again for sure. For sure. Love Nouriel Roubini. You need a pantomime villain in crypto, and Nouriel Roubini, he provides the noise, and he's very fun. The thing about these guys is that their positions are built from years and years of experience, and you shouldn't discount that experience because nobody's ever completely wrong or right in this space, and Louis Navellier is not completely wrong, but at the same time, he's also promoting, you know, he's talking his book, and also just, I mean, with all these guys, they like to generate headlines, and it's fun to have them around, but we need pantomime videos. So what do we have in the chat? Cabbage Head. Someone saying, yes, loot video was grand. You know what? The loot video, I watched it back again, wasn't the best thing we made. Some of it was good. Some of it was good. Like the opening, I think, was good. I didn't quite connect with the loot story the way I wanted to. I don't know why that was. I just didn't kind of... yeah. A loot is an interesting one because it's been forgotten about, and it was so memey, the whole thing. And the way that people just started just posting any old square of crap with any old selection of words, just like, what were we buying? If anything's going to come out of it, loot's going to be the one that succeeds. If anyone has a bag of loot, well done to you. I hope you got through it. I think AGLD, the token, was responsible for most of the froth around that, but anyway. So this brings me to the final conclusion of this entire broadcast, videogram, stream, whatever we want to call it, which is like, what do I see for next year? I wanted to do like a whole video like this is going to be the thing and this is going to be the thing, but to be honest with you, there's no point. Like predicting stuff, pointless, absolutely pointless. So these are some ideas that I think are going to be interesting next year, going to be rich and debated next year. So the first one is the open metaverse, of course. When we say open metaverse, we're basically saying, value that's free to move wherever it wants, that isn't controlled by gatekeepers, that doesn't have that Web 2 paradigm. Think if Facebook does the metaverse, then how can it be open? And where do we sit in all of that? There's some really interesting things going on. The Defiant, as a Web3 media company, is positioning itself to be a metaverse publishing company. We don't really know what that means yet. And I think there's a lot of work to be done to figure out how we position ourselves. But at least here on the video side, we recognize that we need to be the ones beating down the doors and trying to figure out how to be virtualized, how to be NFTized, and to take the technology that we have in front of us and start rewriting the rules. And that's what we're going to do. And we'll be completely out on our own doing that. And that's fine because, well, someone's got to do it. The second thing I'm going to see for next year is the continued expansion across major alt layer ones. Having seen Harmony being built from basically nothing to where it is now, it's really been encouraging to see how DeFi has become this bulkhead for development on these chains. It really is where the value is flowing to and where the most interesting stuff is happening. So Avalanche, of course, Solana, obviously, Cardano, maybe, Kusama, Polkadot, Elrond, shout out to Elrond. There's just so many interesting things happening. Near Protocol, didn't mention them, Algorand, Hashgraph, maybe. There's just a bunch of stuff going on, and it's really interesting. And a lot of it's just forks of things that are happening on Ethereum, but sometimes, for instance, like on Terra, they're building stuff that just doesn't exist elsewhere. And again, that's why Terra is such a fascinating ecosystem. It's because of UST that entire ecosystem functions and is the way it is. Anchor Protocol, 20%. I mean, it just, there's some cool stuff. Ethereum maxis will attack, and they'll attack on one vector, which is decentralization. Tone Vase refuses to acknowledge the existence of DeFi and NFTs because he believes that it's just completely anathema to decentralization. ETH maxis, they'll just shit on you for being not being decentralized enough. All the while disregarding the fact that Ethereum at one point was deeply not decentralized and continues to be, and there's monopolies on Bitcoin mining everywhere. So decentralization is, to a degree, a meme. What's interesting is end consumer. What can they do that is better than it is in the traditional financial systems that they find themselves in? And if it's better where we are, and it's consistent and reliable and stable and moderately safe, then that's pretty much all we can hope for. This whole maxis attack. Anyway, the more successful these alt layer ones are, the bigger the argument that mounts up against them from established entities like Ethereum or Bitcoin will be. It's just going to be the way it is. And it's all going to play out on Twitter. It's all going to get ugly, and it's going to be stupid and pointless and a lot of energy. And it's mostly going to be white males in their 30s doing this stuff. And NFTs, if they've shown us anything, is that there's a place for everybody, and it isn't all white males in their 30s. And that's why, for me, it's been one of the most kind of refreshing spaces so far. Stablecoins are going to become the front line of crypto regulation. It's already happened. We are seeing stablecoins become this massive point of attack for US regulators. Elizabeth Warren hates them. Gary Gensler wants to crack down on them. The word crack down. Why would you crack down on a stablecoin? Why? A stablecoin is basically a US dollar. Like, you're not cracked down on the stablecoin itself. The stablecoin isn't the problem. The problem is basically just in the back end. Like, what's it backed by? And then they're talking about bank runs and all these kind of things. But like, most of the problems that the regulators are raising can be solved, like I said, in a weekend with this hacker mentality. They just solve them. Rather than saying this is a scam, it should go away and terrible for everybody. Talk to the people building these things and say, we see a problem here. Fix it, but fix it in a weekend, and then we can get on with having this conversation. So ridiculous. The fourth thing I'm going to see is universal liquidity. Oh, this is so exciting. I've called it LAS, liquidity as a service. Talking to Jala from Olympus DAO, you can see that Olympus is going to become this insane liquidity pool for everything. Layer Zero, we covered on the channel recently. Oh, God, it's so exciting. Tokamak, another one. Just the ability to direct liquidity to the right place, having weaponized liquidity, and a universal liquidity pool that can work across any chain, anywhere, anytime. That is going to be one of the sexiest things that anyone doesn't care about, because it will simply just function. It'll function the same way that your Wi-Fi functions, and you'll be pissed off when it doesn't work. But like, liquidity at the moment is a real pain point for pretty much everything. And we just assume that it has to be a pain point, but there's going to come a point where it's not. And it can just flow everywhere, do everything. And it's the sexiest thing I've ever seen in DeFi. And yet it's also the most boring, the most uninteresting thing. It's like this essential service that you really don't want to care about. You want to turn your tap on and water comes out. That's it. Done. And that's what I think universal liquidity will be next year. We're not there yet, but we're so close now. Very exciting. 5, $1 billion hack. That's the downside of universal liquidity. If you think that there is the ability of a hacker to target one protocol and access $1 billion of liquidity, that's pretty tough. But if you've got one protocol whose liquidity is shared amongst 5, 6, 7, 8 different blockchains, that's a much greater multiplier on the amount of liquidity that they could attack. And therefore, $1 billion hack is not just guaranteed, it's inevitable next year. And that brings me to my final kind of bonus idea for next year, which is downside protection, which is this idea that a bear market can't hurt us. I call it a meme because I think we've seen super cycle meme. We've seen this time it's different memes. And I see more and more people saying, well, maybe the Bitcoin rise is to 6 figures is going to be like super slow. And therefore, if it is super slow, then it means that the run down the other side is going to be super slow. Nobody knows. Nobody knows. But what I do know is that DeFi and what it can do from a financial engineering perspective, it can protect the downside. I've already seen this in a number of different areas and the different protocols that allow you to protect your downside. So if you can protect your downside, why wouldn't you? So I think downside protection is going to be one of those things next year that just becomes a, you know what? I'm fine. I'm fine. It'll be a meme. So, Diraj Moore says, remember that $600 million hack on Polar Network? Diraj, I'm going to ask you to go back and watch the stream. Go back 30 minutes. Go back 30 minutes. Read it. Ben Snow says, have you some reading resources on universal liquidity? I do not, because I made it up for this stream. It's trademark Defiant. Liquidity is I made it up. I just think it's an inevitability of cross-chain mechanisms and everything else that's going on. I think Ethereum heads don't want alt layer ones to succeed, and there's a big narrative that basically once the market starts turning down, that all the liquidity will drain from those layer ones. You forget how much money these layer ones have. They've got runway for days, for years. Solana, they'll spend for the next 5 years and they won't run out of money. You have no idea how rich Solana is. Cardano, forget about it. beyond rich. They can just keep spending and spending and spending. And Charles will keep broadcasting. Hi, it's Charles Hoskinson broadcasting live. Diraj joined the stream late. That's fine, Diraj. You're allowed. You're allowed. We've got some pulse chain shills in the chat. Hey, listen, here's some final words on stablecoins. Larry Chernak just posted a block research piece on Twitter today, and there's some starting statistics. The total supply is growing from just $30 billion in stablecoins in 2020 to over $140 billion now. Look at where it topped out. Like crazy. On-chain volume crossed $5 trillion in 2021 and over 370% year-on-year growth. And that's Elizabeth Warren. Stablecoins pose risk to consumers and to our economy. They're propping up one of the shadiest parts of the crypto world, DeFi, where consumers are least protected from getting scammed. Our regulators need to get serious about clamping down before it is too late. So if you didn't already know, DeFi, even more so than Bitcoin, is at the front line of all the regulatory debate. Stablecoins have become so big now that everyone is taking notice, and they in the US government, and they you know, if you followed the Congress hearings, the US wants to be number one in this space. They're terrified that they're going to get left behind. There's this innovation happening that they just have no idea about. And next year, they'll do everything they can to rein it in. And I think what they've fundamentally misunderstood is that the developers in this space, they're really hard to rein in. And they're just going to, you know, if you tie them down here, they're going to go somewhere else and just keep busting stuff. That is fantastic. Ryan says there's actually a new project for Terra. Its first strategy is downside protection. It's called Hedge Plus. There you go. There you go. Exactly. You know, if you, it's felt like DeFi volume has been collapsing over the last kind of year, I guess. And after the summer that we had last year, well, that's not surprising. But in the meantime, so many problems. I mean, I'm just looking at Bancor, for instance. They solved impermanent loss. I mean, like, if there's a problem, somebody somewhere is solving it. And it's like a two-man team in a basement somewhere. And it's Cheetos and Red Bull all the way, and they solve it. And that's basically the space that we're in. So rather than flagging a problem and saying this is bullshit and this is a scam, say, hey, we know that you're really good at this stuff. Here's the problem that we see. Can you fix it? And let's have a conversation. That would be so much more healthy. But are we going to get that? I do not know. Abgazimov, do you have any final words as we wrap up this stream, looking back at last year and looking towards this year? What are you excited about for next year?
I am excited about music NFTs because I think they didn't have their time this year. Like more of the PFP projects, one-on-one artists have their moment, but like music NFTs really didn't have their moment. Besides like top artists like 3Lau.
Blau. His name's Blau.
Well, whatever.
I know it's really difficult. Why can't you just use normal letters like a?
Why didn't you use like what's 3, bro? Whatever. 3Lau. Blau. Okay.
Blah, 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 blah.
Yeah, but like let's not focus on him because he's a survivorship bias, right? I think more music NFTs will be popping up starting next year. And I think DAOs will gain a little more traction going forward. What else? I think layer 2s will get a more adoption.
Which ones are we split? Like Arbitrum and Optimism and
Arbitrum, Optimism. What else is there?
Well,
Loopring. I don't know.
Yeah, but there's so many. But like the layer 2, we shouldn't really even name them now because they're all going to be interoperable and they're all going to like connect with each other. There's like it's just one big spaghetti junction of liquidity and technology. And whoever figures out how to make the process of talking to them, layer 0, by the way.
Cross-chain. That's another thing I wanted to mention, actually. Cross-chain is going to be another thing.
That was the big message coming out of Olympus DAO as well. Cross-chain. But I think go back and watch the layer 0 video that we did. When I read that, I was just like, oh my God, how is it that it's right there. It's a simple piece of communication. That's all it is. It's all it is. And then suddenly you're available on another chain. If they can get that working and implemented like at scale, oh my goodness, it's just going to free up everybody anywhere to go wherever they want, to go and hunt down the best things that they want on any chain. And all that friction goes away. I mean, of course, he's going to introduce a whole bunch of scams and another bunch of stuff, but fundamentally, that friction point is so painful right now.
And I guess the final thing will be the merge to ETH 2.0.
Yeah, of course.
And the final thing will be DeFi 3.0.
DeFi 3.0. Now it's personal.
You heard it here first. Okay, I'm gonna check if we hit 94,000.
Hey, yeah, did
we hit 94,000. Let's go.
Wow, 94,000 subscribers. Thank you so much, everybody. Well, I think it's the time to drop the mic on the stream. This is actually the last thing that we're going to be producing this year. We've been busting our asses trying to get all the content ready for the end of the year. I hope you've enjoyed what we've made this year. I hope you've enjoyed at least the different way that we do things. And I apologize for the clickbait, thumbnail, everything else. It's just not what we're going to be doing next year at all. We are moving into a very weird and unique sector of the market. We're going to be embracing the metaverse completely. But fundamentally, the thing that I think we're really good at is just being hopefully clear-eyed and a little bit sensible, but also just fun and very much the Defiant. So keep defying throughout the end of this year, no matter what the market brings you, because no matter how bad it feels, like Blockfolio has just told me, ETH is up 3.93% in the last hour. I don't know what's going to happen. Do you? Nobody knows. What I do know is that we will be here and we will be talking about it. So on that note, thanks for joining the stream. Please do consider subscribing if you haven't. Oh, God, I hate doing that stuff. I'm so bad at it.
Wait, we have that cue on here. Yeah.
There you go. Subscribe. That's Al Gazimov. This has been The Defiant, and I will see you in the new year. Peace out. Boom.